We're talking about how shepherd-type pastors can lead in vision and strategy today on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and A.J. Mathieu.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, A.J. Mathieu.
Scott Ball, how are you?
We've been chatting for a while before we hit the red button. I'm doing really good. Today we're talking on the podcast about we've struggled with a title. By the time you're listening to this, we'll have landed on a title. But the question at the core of this episode is, if you're like a shepherding type leader, that you maybe aren't the best at a vision, or you might not consider yourself to be a visioning type leader. So how can you improve in those areas, and lead a visionary church, even if you yourself, that's maybe not your top skill? See, that's way too long for a title. So
we'll work on it.
We'll workshop it. We'll circle back.
So if you go over to malphursgroup.com and you read the show notes for today, you'll see what title we landed on. But regardless, we've got an outline to talk about, and I think it's going to get to the heart of the matter.
For sure. Now, one bonus tip before we dive into the tips we've planned. Let me just say there's a lot of information about vision and vision formation and training for those kinds of things on the Healthy Churches Toolkit. So if you go to healthychurchestoolkit.com, you can sign up free for 7 days and check out those resources. You should do that.
You should do that. Strategy is a big deal at the Malphurs Group and Healthy Churches Global, because we think that your church should be asking good questions, significant questions, and then figuring out a path forward for that. So, which is behind the question today. This was a listener question. So as a shepherding type pastor, so the assumption here, as a shepherding type pastor, how can you lead well in vision and strategy? The assumption is that those gifted more in the shepherding nature, relationship driven, really caring, empathetic, and compassionate, and relationship focused people. Sometimes that feels, and in many cases it is, can feel very detached from the mind that is very strategy focused, able to identify the problem and then chart a course forward. And then on the vision side, this always having kind of a picture of the future. I want to decouple those terms, Scott, here right from the top. I don't think if you're a strategic thinker, you're also a visionary thinker, or vice versa. We got kind of three things we're talking about here: shepherding, strategy, vision. I don't want anybody to think these are any two of these or others are always connected, and they're not. So really the focus is on the shepherd heart, being able to operate in spaces that maybe you're just not naturally gifted in. So that's where we're going.
Yeah. All right. So if you consider yourself more of a shepherding type leader, maybe not as skilled in forming a vision statement and leading in a visionary way, what should you do? And the first step, our first key point here, is to recognize your strengths and weaknesses. Maybe to even really own them and name them. It's important to have that level of self-awareness, and to do so in a somewhat neutral way. All of the gifts are really important. Every leadership gift is vital, and the church needs it. And so don't look down on yourself and think, you know what, I'm not as good at this aspect of leadership, therefore I'm not a good leader. No, you can be a really good leader and just not be as good in one thing as you are in another. My encouragement here as well would be, don't try to force something that isn't you. Don't try to be something that you aren't. So when we talk about just recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, I want to be sure that I'm not encouraging you to try and fake it. If you're not good at something, just be okay with not being good at something. Because you can take something that if you're on a scale from 1 to 10, you're naturally a 3, you might be able to get to a 5 with some work. And maybe there is some value to doing that, like increasing your ability on the margins. But recognizing that your ceiling in that area is a 5 is okay, because that will lead into some other things we're going to talk about. But don't try to be the master leader, great at everything. You won't be. It's better to go through some assessments. I know AJ loves assessments. But maybe go through some assessments, maybe have some conversations with other leaders in your life, and have some self-awareness and know this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm not good at.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Scott. And the audience needs to know that you're joking. I don't love assessments, but I do. But I do recognize the value.
Well, the people who've been listening to this podcast for long enough already know that.
That's true. I do recognize the value of assessments. So, and because I think that's where you can gain information or maybe affirmation, because you have a sense of this already. You're not over there blind. I mean, that would be the rare leader, I suppose, who have made it to your position with no clue as to your natural bent in leadership style and how you relate to people. You do know. But information, I think, does have value. And anytime you gain information, you have a choice to make because, that's the way life works. I have some new information. What am I going to do with this? I can ignore it. I can lean into it. I can attempt to change. I can try to develop. And so we are encouraging the level of development that you're able to without it becoming like such a burden, that it almost drags you down. So I think that's what you're trying to say, Scott. You could have incremental improvement. You could improve 10%, 20%, but you're never going to become like this whole different personality, and that's okay. Yeah. Made in the image of God.
You can tell, can't you? Like, if you've ever been around a leader who's trying too hard in an area where you know you're not good at it, it's just it's almost sad. You're like, just don't do it.
Yeah. Now, in regard to assessment, what I dislike is continued assessment or, have to, there's a new one out. Let me see where I am in that one. And now I've got all of this stuff I'm trying to reconcile and understand, whatever that new acronym is. I'm just not there. I think I've looked at a few of these. I have a pretty good feeling about who I am. I understand some of the basics of what to recognize in other people, how to relate to that. To me, don't let that become such a time consumer. Figure out where you're at. Just get some basic information and then focus your attention on important things after that.
Yes. All right. Number 2, build a team. So if you first recognize where you have strengths and where you have weaknesses, then you can build a team around you. You can surround yourself with people who have different skills and abilities than you have. And this is really important. And I think this is maybe you were thinking, listener, I bet they're going to say you need to build a team around you. Here's my thought. A lot of you are not doing this. You ought to, but you're not. Or they're like advisory. You're not empowering them in any real way. You're putting a team around you, but you're not really giving them any sort of authority to serve alongside of you. And we'll talk more about this as we go through. That might feel threatening to do that, which might be why you don't do it. But you need to consider building a team around you that has complementary strengths and collaborating with them. You don't have to give up your role. No one's asking you to do that or your title, but to genuinely empower people to work alongside you to own things that you are not good at.
Absolutely, man. I think this is key. I'm all in on build the team. Hey, Jesus didn't have one disciple. He had 12. So, one
of them was a real bummer.
That's a topic for another day. But we know the number was greater than 12, greater than 1. So you need a team. Jesus did not need a team. Jesus chose to have a team. You're not Jesus. We don't need to try to make that comparison. So, but
he
yeah,
didn't need a team. He chose a team. You need a team.
yeah, that's right.
I need a team. Yeah,
That's right. Man, this is where the actual goals, become reality is with the team. So, but you're right, Scott. I mean, you've got to surround yourself with complementary leaders. You need to collaborate. So you can't have a fake team. You can't have a visual team that doesn't function as a team. You need a real team. We had an episode on this. It's probably been longer than I think about.
Yeah.
I'll have to link that in.
I don't think it was that long ago, but yeah.
I don't even know if it was this year, but
I think it was this year.
Was it? But that was a really good episode. I'll link that in the show notes. That team building episode that we did. And you just need to take actual action then. I mean, work in a team environment, make good decisions and implement, and then move on to our next point, Scott.
Yeah. So then live your role. Once you've surrounded yourself with a team, then you really do need to own the thing that you are good at. So when you're rolling out a vision, a huge component of rolling that out is bringing people along with you, especially if it's something that's new and really different. And people are going to have feelings about that. And so maybe you're not the one who's going to love making those decisions, because you know how there's going to be some people who are going to feel challenged by that. But you are a good person to come along pastorally and help people see the value of where we're going. I totally understand how you're feeling and why this is challenging. Let me just explain why we're moving in this direction. Whatever aspects that you're really good at, you should own that. Plus, speak first. So even though you might not be the most visionary communicator, still step into your role. If you're the lead pastor or the senior pastor, speak first, but speak in your own voice. Own the aspect of the communication that you are good at. Like maybe you're a really great Bible teacher, and so you want to first connect, this vision for the future to some aspect of the scripture. And then when you need to get someone up there who's really great at rallying the troops for the purposes of raising money or building teams, that's when you let some of that rest of your team come up there and they take ownership of those aspects of communication that they're better at. So whatever it is that you're good at, whether it's the one-on-one meetings or it's the teaching component of it, just really step into that role boldly and don't feel ashamed or embarrassed and go, well, I wish I were. This goes back to that first point of owning your strengths and weaknesses. Don't feel like, I wish I were better at X or Y, because you're really good at A and B. And so you need to own A and B and step into that confidently, because that's who the Lord has made you to be. And then hand off X and Y to the people who are best at X and Y.
Yeah. If you've ever seen that cringe Microsoft launch event where Bill Gates thought he was going to be the hype man, that is the textbook what not to do. That is, I don't know if we can put
the one where Steve Ballmer is like up there yelling and sweating and Bill Gates is up there like,
they tried dancing. Don't dance. Please stop dancing. Stay in your lane. Just stay in your lane. All right. All right. So our final point today, I don't know, a little bit of a call out. Don't let your pride get in the way. I mean, I think we just gave you some reasons. And so, do that. Just lean into your strengths, lean into who you are, and lean into your team. I mean, that's what they're there for. That's why God has brought those people to you. Don't lose sight of that fact. You're not solo church, I mean, you're a people, you're a collection of people, and God has sovereignly brought people around you. He's hoping that you'll get a clue, have the awareness to bring them in, because that's why they're there. And so don't let your pride get in the way. Lean into the team and use everybody's strengths, including your own, to accomplish God's purposes.
Yeah. I mean, I just think about Moses. I think about how from the very beginning, Moses did have this realization that he said, I'm not a very good communicator. And so the Lord said, yeah, okay. Yeah, but your brother is. And, if you look at Moses's example, very, very often the times where he failed is when he sort of stepped out of his lane, and was leading in ways that God wasn't asking him to. And so his pride was getting in the way. He forgot who he was in relationship to the Lord and relationship to the people. And so I would just want to sort of encourage you the same way and say, it's all right. You don't have to be the best speaker or visionary person or whatever. I mean, the original question was, how can a shepherding type pastor become a better visionary? And I guess I would just say, don't. If you're a shepherding type pastor, be a great shepherding type pastor who understands the importance of vision and surrounds himself with people who are really good at the visionary components. You still own your role. You still step in. You speak first. You're the figurehead. You're the face of the vision, but you don't have to be the one who's driving it. You can have other people who are doing that alongside of you and with you. And so don't let your pride get in the way. Be okay with other people going, wow, that associate pastor is a rock star. Yeah, okay. Congratulations. That's great. It's good. It's good. It's good to have other people on the team who are successful and good at what they do. And pride shouldn't get in the way of anybody on the team. So no one should get a big head. So if you've got an executive pastor or an associate pastor or an elder or a deacon who is driving some of this, they shouldn't let their pride get in the way and go, well, I'm basically the lead pastor. No, you're not. You're this other person is the lead pastor and you are helping. They're owning their role too. So humility goes a long way. This is Jesus's prayer, right? Jesus's prayer for his disciples is, we've talked about this on the podcast. We think about that upper room scene as an image of what we're supposed to do for the world, to go and wash people's feet. But that's not what Jesus was saying. Jesus said, you wash one another's feet. His point in that moment was how the disciples were to treat each other, and not how they were supposed to treat the world. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't serve the world. It just means that the point of the foot washing thing was about how people in the church are to interact with each other in Christian community, which is through servant-heartedness. And so I just want to encourage you in that way and just say, hey, don't be proud, be a servant-hearted leader and hold others accountable to that same servant-heartedness on the team. Don't let anyone get a big head.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, there you go. You're an important component in building Christ's church. And so don't ever think that your role is diminished when you feel perhaps inadequate in other areas of leadership, because it does take a team. Jesus knows that. And you are called and obedient. And so lean into your strengths, build your team, build his church. Thanks for being with us this week on the Church Revitalization Podcast. Show notes are linked in the description of your podcast app or over on YouTube. And be sure you check out the Healthy Churches Toolkit at healthychurchestoolkit.com. As you hear this, we're approaching the end of the year. And if you have not yet set your budget for 2026, then definitely have a look at that. Have a 7-day free trial so you can decide if it's going to be right for your church to improve in areas of strategy, vision, discipleship, and evangelism next year. Thanks for being with us, everyone. We'll see you next time.